Hello students, how are you all? I hope all of you are amazing. So I'm Rajni Mamgai, Zoology faculty here. Welcome you at the Triumph Ultimate Recap. So I hope you have seen the recap of the human reproduction chapter and reproductive health. And today we are going to summarize the human health and diseases chapter, which we have done in detail in our class. So let's start it and let's do the recap of this chapter, right? So let me take you ahead. So we know that this chapter, human health and diseases, we have to discuss many diseases like viral disease, or we have to see the bacterial disease, we have to see the protozoan disease and all. And plus we will see AIDS, we will see cancer, we will see drugs addiction, right, in a very, very detailed way. We have done it in detail way in the class, and here we will do the summary of the chapter. So let's start it. So this is the health. So when we are talking about human health and disease, it's very mandatory to know about the health. And we know ancient view about the health is a state of body and mind where there was a balance of certain humor, right? So humor present in our body in different organ, it should be imbalanced. So that is how Ayurveda actually treat a person, right? On the basis of the humor present in their body. Followed by Hippocrates as well as Indian Ayurveda system of medicine. So this was actually followed by Hippocrates and obviously this in Indian Ayurveda, right? So this view was disapproved by the William Harvey, and this is the modern way. That means complete well-being of physical, mental, and social aspect of a human is considered healthy, right? So that is the modern view of the health. So now, if we see, so a state of complete well-being, socially, complete well-being, socially, physically, and mental well-being, right? Then that person will consider healthy. So what are the reasons that cause diseases, right? So what are the factors that affect our health, that make us mentally, physically, or socially unfit? So these, some are genetic disorder, means defect present since the childhood. That is the genetic disorder. We actually have the infections. Infectious means the pathogen, disease caused by the pathogen, and they are spreading from one person to another, infecting others. So infection is the other reason. That means from pathogens. So pathogens are nothing. These are disease causing agents. Yes, they are causing diseases, right? So dis-ease means when our body is not at ease. Dis means not, ease means not at comfortable state. So now another thing is lifestyle. So we know that we are eating a lot of the junk food nowadays. We are consuming it, right? And it is not good for our health. We know it, and still we are continuously consuming. So definitely we can see many diseases arising in a people, in the population, because of the junk food, because of the overconsumption of the junk food, right? So lifestyle means people are not taking good food, they are not having good water, they are not taking proper rest, they are continuously working, right? Or they are continuously studying sometime, not giving their body rest. So body actually require rest. That is the that means we are charging our body for doing various activity. We need rest. That is so important, right? And proper exercise, which we generally don't do, but this is actually very important, right? So now let me take you ahead. So when we talk about dis-ease, as I have told you, when our body is not at ease, so when the functioning of one or more system of the body is adversely affected, characterized by appearance of various signs and symptoms. So suppose we are having the common cold. We know that we don't feel good. We actually, have the throat pain, or we are having the running nose, right? Or we are having sometime flu. In case of flu, we are having fever. We are having sore throat. So these are signs and symptoms. And obviously it is affecting various organ of the body. So these are the diseases, right? So disease can be broadly grouped into infectious and non-infectious. It is basically grouped into two categories, infectious and non-infectious. So we know infectious means it will spread from the affected person to the normal person or healthy person, and non-infectious means it doesn't spread, right? So when we talk about infectious means disease which are easily transmitted from one person are called infectious disease. Example, corona, right? You know the best example, corona, common cold. So all these diseases will spread from one person to another. And now if we talk about the Infectious disease. So example, pathogen, the diseases caused by pathogen. So generally they spread from one person to another, right? Non-infectious means they don't spread, right? So these are the diseases, they don't spread from one person to another. So what can be the example? Like cancer, or we can say that we are having the vitamin deficiency or certain mineral deficiency diseases in the body, right? So yeah, deficiency caused by certain minerals, right, or vitamins. So deficiencies are also not infectious. Diabetes, cholesterol, these are non-infectious, right? So we know many diseases, many such diseases. These are some best examples. Now let me take you towards the infectious disease caused by various pathogen. And I have told you pathogen are disease causing agent, right? So yeah, let's discuss about the bacterial disease. This is the first disease, that is the typhoid, caused by the Salmonella typhi, and it is mode of transmission. MOT is mode of transmission, how it transmit from how it transmit to the individual, right? So it's via the contaminated food and water. Got it? And symptoms are sustained high fever, 39 to 40 degrees Celsius. A person will feel this weakness, this stomach, because it is basically intake by the food and water just entering our digestive system. It will cause problem in digestive system. So yeah, it we'll feel headache, we'll feel stomach pain, constipation. Appetite means we will not feel hungry. Loss of appetite means we will not feel hungry, right? Intestinal perforation in severe cases. So in severe cases, it's so dangerous. It can cause pores in intestine, right? And when we talk about this typhoid, we are having a test for it. So there is a test for this diagnostic test, that is the Widal test. And there was a cook, that is the Mary Millon. So that cook was the carrier of the typhoid, or typhoid also known as the enteric fever. Enteric means related to digestive system, right? So enteric fever means it is basically entering through the contaminated food and water, affecting our digestive system, right? And that Mary Mellon was the carrier of the cancer, and carrier of the typhoid, and she was a cook, right? So obviously she was the carrier of typhoid, was contaminating food via different, like she was contaminating food that she was cooking, right? And she was serving it to the people, serving the typhoid to the people. So that's why we called it Typhoid Mary. So she used to call by the name Typhoid Mary. So you have to remember this name while we are studying about the typhoid, right? So Mary Mellon is the name when we talk about typhoid. Pneumonia is other bacterial disease that is caused by the Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. You have to remember these two bacteria. This basically spread by the droplet, air droplet, while we are sneezing, coughing. Those droplet will infect the other person, right? And it caused the formites. Caused by the formites means some object, some non-living object, like a knob of the door or faucet of tap, right? So if somebody has infection, they are using pen and you are using their pen, and then you are touching your nose, you will get the infection, right? So that is the formite borne infection, means that will spread via some object, right? That is touched by the infected person. So spread by object, spread by object of infected person, right? So that is the formite disease. So, when we talk about pneumonia, it is basically affecting our lungs, our alveoli. So, yes, our alveoli is basically filled with the fluid in case of pneumonia, right? It filled with fluid. What filled with the fluid? Alveoli, right? Alveoli means alveoli of lungs. And when it is filled with the fluid, what will happen? It will not able to exchange the gases properly, and in the extreme condition, oxygen supply will not be proper in the body. So tips of nails or the lips turns grayish in color, right? Because of lack of oxygen. So gray to bluish in color, lips and fingernails may convert in this color, right? So fever, chills, cough, headache, these are the particular symptoms that you have to remember, and it is affecting our lungs, you have to remember, right? So other bacterial disease, you don't have to remember their what we call causative agents, but these are actually caused by the bacteria, dysentery, or you can say this cholera, right? Next is plague, caused by this, Yersinia pestis bacteria, and it is spread by the rat flea. Yes, over the rat, we are having the flea. They are carrier of this disease, right? So they are carrying the Yersinia pestis bacteria and spreading it to the people. You don't have to remember the name. And then we are having the diphtheria, right? So these are other bacterial infections. So now let's move towards the bacterial disease, means caused by bacteria. So when we talk about it, so let's discuss about the common cold first, right? So when we talk about common cold caused by the rhinovirus, rhino means related to nose. This virus infects our nose and it doesn't affect our lungs. So you have to remember the difference between pneumonia and the common cold. One caused by bacteria, other caused by virus. One in, this common cold, basically our lungs are not affected, but in pneumonia, lungs are affected. That I have told you, right? So means it is the infection of nose and upper respiratory passage, but will not affect our lungs. So what will happen in the common cold? All of you have experienced it. So you just tell me congestion of the nose, right? So discharge, so nose, nasal discharge, sore throat, hoarseness of voice means voice becomes so thick, right? So that is how exactly happen. Cough, headache, tiredness, and spread via cough, sneezing, droplet, and formite infection. So you know what is the formite infection now. And incubation period is 3 to 7 days. So when we are infected with the virus, it will remain at the, it will not show any symptom till 3 to 7 days. But after that, it will just do all these things, right? So it will not affect our lungs, important for the exam. Next, protozoan disease. So yeah, in our NCRT, they have given this viral disease and plus AIDS. So we have to see AIDS in detail way ahead. With the HIV virus, right? With the diagram of HIV virus. So let's see it ahead. So now if we see the protozoan disease is malaria caused by the plasmodium, we know. So plasmodium is basically a tiny protozoan and having this species Plasmodium vivax. These are the 4 species that you have to remember. Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium malariae, Plasmodium falciparum. So when we talk about Plasmodium falciparum, it causes the dangerous malaria. It causes the cerebral, malaria. Cerebral malaria means what it does, no? This pathogen will actually do the mass destruction of RBC. And, sometimes they get clotted in the capillaries and block and especially the small capillaries of the brain. Destructed RBCs got clogged there, right? And what it will happen when they are clogged there, so obviously BP will go up, or they will just, blood will try to push it, and sometime capillaries got ruptured, cause harm. So that's why it's so dangerous, right? So obviously Plasmodium falciparum is the fatal malaria, means it's so dangerous. And Plasmodium enter the human body by the sporozoid. This is the infective stage of the malaria. Female Anopheles mosquito act as vector, means female Anopheles bacteria will actually spread the bacteria. Will spread this protozoan, will enter it in our body, right? Will bite us, and then this sporozoid of the Plasmodium enter our body. So this, when we talk about the Plasmodium has 2 vectors, right? It is having 2 hosts. Plasmodium has 2 hosts. One is mosquito, female mosquito, Anopheles, right? So Anopheles, female mosquito is the carrier, means this is the host. So they just do the sexual reproduction here. Means the Plasmodium, right? These what we call Plasmodium basically do their life cycle sexual reproduction in the mosquito gut, right? So sexual reproduction in mosquito, and this Plasmodium has 2 hosts. They require 2 hosts to complete their life cycle. And yes, once they are done with the sexual reproduction, and obviously they are the extracellular parasite. Extracellular means they don't infect their cell, rather they are present in their gut cavity and will cause the pore in the gut. They are very dangerous. Extracellular parasite in case of the mosquito. Whereas other host is the human. And you know what? In human asexual reproduction happen by multiple fission. So asexual reproduction, and you know they infect the cells of the human. So what are those cells? RBC and hepatocyte. These two cells, hepatocyte means liver cell, is infected, right? So these means the plasmodium actually has two hosts, and one they are extracellular parasite, and for other they are intercellular parasite, means they are staying in the cell, destructing the cell, right? So this is exactly how the malaria infect the body, using these two hosts, means they are infecting mosquito as well as mosquito spreading the disease to human. How? Let's check it. This is the beautiful NCRT diagram where you can see that obviously this thing that is basically shown here happening in the human host, and this side it is happening in the mosquito host. So you know this mosquito salivary gland is the reservoir of the sporozoid. So mosquito salivary gland is the reservoir of the infected stage of plasmodium known as sporozoid, right? So you have to remember this sporozoid. Where does it present? You have to remember in mosquito salivary gland. So when mosquito biting us, so while it's biting us, salivary, along with the saliva, it will inject the sporozoid infective stage in our body, right? So yeah, sporozoid is actually infective stage. It is infective stage entering our body, and via blood reaches the hepatocyte, means liver cell, and there it will start doing the multiple fission, and burst. After doing the multiple fission, it will burst and release the small protoplasmodium here, right? So these plasmodium will release out by rupturing the liver cell, right? And these small parasites, now known as merozoid, now these merozoids will continue this cycle and increase their number. Once and simultaneously they will infect our RBC. They will enter the RBC. So it has entered the RBC. There also it will do multiple fission, and they will start eating the hemoglobin of the RBC, and from that hemoglobin they will produce a dangerous toxin in the RBCs that is known as hemozoin. So yes, you have to remember these plasmodium are so dangerous. They will enter RBC, eat our hemoglobin, convert hemoglobin into hemozoin toxin, and when they done with the division, they will rupture RBC, and obviously all the plasmodium will come out, and obviously this toxin will also come out, which will cause the chills and fever. So parasite reproduce asexually in RBC, busting RBC and cause cycle of the fever and symptoms. Why this chills and fever will happen? Due to toxin. So obviously when the RBC rupture, it will release hemozoin. So hemozoin are nothing. This is the toxin, right? Hemozoin is nothing but the toxin that cause chills and fever. So whenever they are bursting our RBCs, we will feel the chills and fever. So after every 48 hours, in some case of the plasmodium, we just see the chills and fever after every 72 hours. So that is because of this, right? Now, what will happen as these, merozoite has come out, they will, once their urge of division is done, so now they will convert into gametocyte. Gametocyte means gamete production cell. But they don't get favorable temperature and condition in our body, so they cannot they cannot fuse to do the sexual reproduction. So once their urge for division is done, once they converted into gametocyte running in our blood, suppose female Anopheles mosquito, strolling around and, that basically biting us or biting the infected person who are having the, that person blood has the gametocyte. So she will just take the blood, ingest the blood, and that blood with the gametocyte enter the gut of mosquito. There they will find the appropriate temperature. So now plasmodium enter the mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito. There they will get the favorable temperature, and now in the mosquito what will happen? Fertilization, development in the mosquito gut. Then they will rupture the stomach of mosquito or mosquito gut, cause the pore in it. just come out in the body coelom, right? So suppose this is the gut of mosquito, they will cause spore and come out here in the body coelom and convert into sporozoite and then enter to the salivary gland and get reserved there. So in NEET, they will ask you that where exactly sporozoites get reserved. They get reserved in the salivary gland. So salivary gland is the reservoir of the these parasites, right? So that you have to remember. Now, second protozoan disease is the amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery. So what happens in the case of amoebic dysentery? You tell me. Amoebic dysentery caused by the amoeba, enter amoeba histolytica, which is the protozoan, right? And commonly known as amoebic dysentery. In these are the symptoms: constipation, abdominal pain, cramps, stool with the excess mucus, and blood clot also. So you have to remember this. It's spread by the contaminated food and water. So suppose you are having the food, street food, you are having the chances to get such diseases, right? So housefly act as the mechanical vector. Even cockroaches also act as mechanical vector. So suppose they are sitting on the fecal matter of infected person and their fecal matter has the cyst of their plasmodium. So now the same housefly or cockroach will sit on your food. You are eating it. What will happen? That cyst will enter in your stomach and cause the disease, right? So here are the symptoms. Next is Helminthic disease caused by roundworm that you must have done in your class 11 animal kingdom, right? So roundworm causing these diseases means Ascomynthis causing these diseases. So first is Ascariasis caused by Ascariasis lumbricoid and is spread by the egg present in the contaminated soil, fruit, vegetable that you are basically that you are buying from the market, not washing it properly. Perhaps they might have the cyst of these worms and you are eating them and they will just enter your body and cause so many infection, right? Dangerous infection. So symptoms include internal bleeding, muscular pain, fever, anemia. Why? Because internal bleeding, it will basically eat our intestine, cause the internal bleeding there. And in the extreme condition, when the worm reproduce consistently in our intestine, they blocked our intestine in the extreme condition. So it will cause the blockage of intestinal passage, right? Next, filariasis caused by Wuchereria bancrofti or Wuchereria malay, you have to remember. Transmitted through Culex mosquito means vector caused disease, right? So it is because of contaminated food and water. This is because of the Culex mosquito mainly. And these are the symptoms. Cause chronic inflammation of the organ in which they live for many years, means they are just causing the disease for longer time. Infected mainly our lymphatic system and cause swelling in the lower limbs mainly, right? So legs become swollen due to edema. Edema means swelling because they are infecting our lymphatic system and all the lymph will get accumulated around the tissue and cause the swelling there. So that is how exactly this happened. And so because of swelling, their leg appear elephant leg. So we called it elephantiasis also, right? We called it elephantiasis because in this condition, swelling of the leg happen and they look like elephant leg. Genital organs are affected and mainly lower limbs are affected, right? And sometimes this deformities happen in the body. So really they are dangerous. Next is the fungal infection caused by fungi causing ringworm. So ringworm doesn't cause by any worm, rather they cause by the fungi, you have to remember. So caused by 3 genera of fungi, that is the Mycosporum, Trichophyton, Epidermophyton. So we know that wherever, I mean, these, how they spread? They spread via the contaminated towels, or you can say towels, or contaminated, cloth, or contaminated comb, or contaminated object that is used by the infected person, and you are using the same. So there are the chances of spread these fungi cause ringworm, right? So I'm sure you have seen the ringworm. They are really scaly, itchy, dry lesions on the body. And they cause so much itching also. Intense itching happen, right? So dry, scaly lesions, and they just like the damp area. They like the moist area. So they generally grow in the scalp if you're not washing it properly. They are just growing in the armpits because, or underarms, right? Because they get moisture there, or they just, grow in near the reproductive organ groin area, because there they will get the moisture. So they love moisture. This is the favorable condition for them to thrive and survive, right? So yeah, dry lesions on various part of the body such as skin, nails, and scalp. Lesions are accompanied by the intense itching, as I have told you, spread using towels, clothes, or even the comb of infected individual. And sometime especially seen in the sports people, so they are wearing shoes, they are just doing so much exercises or so much activity, physical activity, so they have the moist leg all the time, so there are the chances of the fungal infection, also known as athlete foot, right? So yeah, personal hygiene is so important in order to prevent the diseases. Keeping the body clean, consumption of clean food, vegetables, fruits, etc. And public hygiene is also important, so you have to proper dispose waste and excretory waste, periodic cleaning and disinfection of the water reservoir, because if there is the water reservoir somewhere, fresh water reservoir somewhere, what will happen? Obviously this larva of the mosquito will grow, so we have to take care to keep them clean in order to prevent the mosquito vector borne infection, right? To prevent them, so observing standard practice of hygiene in public catering, so obviously we should always consume clean food, right? So like we talk mosquito larva, so sometime these larvae basically grow in the fresh water, in a very very clean water, right? So we have to make sure that we are just cleaning the ponds clearly, like nicely around our area. So mosquito larvae sometime in the ponds or in the water reservoir, we just leave the gambusia fish. So gambusia fish is basically larvivores, so they eat the mosquito larva, right? They feed on the mosquito larva, so sometime we just introduce these fishes in the ponds or in the water reservoir, right? So control of the vector and avoiding stagnation of water somewhere around the residential area to prevent the mosquito larva to grow. So mosquito larva actually grow in the water, right? So regular cleaning of household coolers, because accumulated water can actually make the larva to grow there. Use of mosquito net, fish like gambusia fish in pond, spraying of insecticide in ditches, drainage areas, and swamp. Doors and windows should be provided with wire mesh, especially when there is the season of mosquito, right? Mosquito-borne diseases. Next thing is immunity. So when we talk about immunity, what do you understand by it? It's the ability of our body to fight against infection, right? So what is the immunity? Ability of body to fight against pathogen, right? Or disease causing agent, right? So whatever you say, these are the immunity of the human. So immunity are of two type. Innate means present since birth, and this is not specific. Not specific means it is general for all the, it will just try to prevent all the type of pathogen in the body. So they are kind of barriers, right? So they are not specific, they are general for all the diseases, but we acquire after birth. So we acquire it after birth, and they are very specific. And these are the characteristic feature of vertebrates only, means they are present in the characteristic of vertebrates only. You know what are the vertebrates, right? And obviously they are having certain properties. What are those properties? They are able to differentiate self and non-self. So yeah, they are able to discriminate between self and non-self, means which is mine, which is not mine, right? So means they are able to recognize self and non-self. Got it? Which is mine and which is not mine. Second, they can form the memory. So suppose they encounter with certain pathogen, so they are having ability to make the memory cell, right? So that if the second time same pathogen enter our body, they know how to fight against them, right? or they are able to recognize diversity of pathogen. They are able to recognize varieties of pathogen, right? So that they can fight against them. Recognize variety of pathogen, diversity of pathogens, right? So that's all. These are the properties that you have to remember about the, they are specific as I have told you, right? So this is also property. They are very specific. Specificity is the property of the acquired immunity. So innate immunity includes physical barrier, means they will prevent the entry of the pathogen in our body. So skin is the physical barrier and mucous membrane lining the respiratory passage. So generally it is making the inner lining of those organs which is directly connected to outside, like our mouth. So there are the chances that pathogen entered via the mouth. Nose, we are inhaling. So obviously all the respiratory tract in a passage have the mucosal membrane to prevent the entry in the blood or in the body. Same urinogenital tract or vaginal tract, right? So obviously these are the examples. So what are the example? Gastrointestinal tract, or you can say gut, right? Or you can say respiratory tract, or you can say urinogenital tract, right? So these are certain example. Next is physiological barrier. So means, you know, whenever we are having fever, our temperature rises up, and saliva, and you can say tears, saliva and tears basically consist lysozyme. So lysozyme are nothing but bacteria killing organism, right? Sorry, so bactericidal agent. And when we talk about stomach, so stomach has HCl. HCl kill the bacteria. They have bactericidal property. Cytokine barriers are kind of special glycoprotein, and they will, the example is the interferon. So interferon is secreted by viral infected cell only. Why it is secreted by viral infected cell? To make other aware that now we are infected by virus, but you have time, you can protect yourself, right? So secreted by viral infected cell to make normal cell less susceptible for infection. So they will just warn the other cell that now I'm suffering, please make yourself more aware about them, or protect yourself from these virus, right? Less susceptible for viral infection. So this is just applicable for viral infection, right? When we talk about cellular barriers, cell act as providing us immunity. WBC, polymorphonuclear lymphocyte, means it is the other name of neutrophils. So you know what are the neutrophils? So neutrophils, right? These are the type of the WBC, and macrophages are also example, right? So these are the example of the cellular barrier. Even monocytes are the example. So these are the cellular barrier that you have to remember. They will they will phagocytosis the pathogen that has entered our body. They will kill them, right? So this is how exactly innate immunity look like. Acquired immunity, told you the properties are of two types. One is the humoral mediated immunity. Humoral means that is present in our blood or body fluid, right? So humoral mediated immunity means also known as antibody mediated immunity. Why we call them antibody mediated immunity? Because antibody present in our body blood, right? So that encounter with the pathogen and kill them, right? Or obviously trap them, and then they are calling macrophage to eat them, right? So means this is the acquired immunity where antibodies secreted by B lymphocyte. So B lymphocyte provide humoral mediated or antibody mediated immunity, whereas cell mediated immunity provide by T lymphocyte, right? So that means they will be able to recognize which is my cell, which is not my cell. So suppose a person have undergone the organ transplantation. So if that person is not taking immunosuppressant drug, what will happen? T lymphocyte will reject the organ, cause the graft rejection. So yes, T lymphocyte cause graft rejection. So that's why the person who has undergone the organ transplantation, they are given the immunosuppressive agents, right? So cause graft rejection means it will reject the organ from the other body. And as I have told you, antibody mediated immunity provided by the bees, antibody secreted by B cell, right? This is how antibody look like. So if you see the antibody is actually glycoprotein made up of the carbohydrate and protein, also known as immuno means providing immunity, and globin means proteinaceous structure is there. So we called it immunoglobin or Ig also, right? So if you see the structure of the antibody, we can see we are having, two heavy chain. So we called it H2. H2 means two heavy chain and two light chain. So in this structure, we are having the four polypeptide chain, four proteinaceous chain, right? And we know that protein chain made up of amino acid. So at one end, amino group is free in the amino acid. So we are writing N. In other end, COH group is free on the other terminal. So we represent it by the C. So you can see we are having two heavy and two light chain, right? And plus they are arranged in such a way. And these chains are stick together by the disulfide bond. So you have to remember they are having this disulfide bond. NEET question, right? NEET question. And if you see the heavy chain, if you see these two heavy chain, two big chain, they are having two region, one represented by the blue, other represented by orange. So if we see this, blue color, so blue color representing the variable region of heavy chain. So it's a variable region. Why we called it variable? Because it is having different type of amino acid in it. And we called variable region of heavy chain. We write it like this also, right? And when we talk about this, it's a constant region, means they are having almost same type of, what we called constant, same type of amino acid, right? Constant region of heavy chain. So we just write it CH. Same way, in light chain, we are having the variable region of light chain, constant region of light chain, right? So you can see both the chains have this variable and constant region. Plus, they are having this site. So variable region of the heavy and light chain have these sites, which is known as antigen binding site or paratope. So paratope means one antibody has two paratope, means they can bind, they can pull the legs of the antigen from these two sites. So these are the antigen binding site. Antigen means these are basically foreign agent or pathogen. So pathogen body has these antigen, which is basically trapped in the antibody, catch by the antibody from this end, right? So you have to remember it. That's all about the structure of antibody. Now, we are having two type of acquired immunity, active and passive. So it's the part of acquired immunity only. So acquired immunity are of two types, active and passive. Active means antibody are made by host body. Host means by us. And antigen are introduced naturally. So either we are having natural infection or it is introduced deliberately, artificially via vaccine. So means we are injecting the disease causing pathogen or their small part in our body. Either they are entering our body naturally or via the vaccine. So vaccines are nothing but the weak form of the pathogen only, right? So provide by vaccination. So this is basically, when we talk about active immunity, they are basically two types, right? So let me just take a page. So when we talk about active immunity means we are introducing antigen either naturally or artificially in the body, antigen entering our body, right? And that antigen will produce the response, will produce the antibodies in the body, right? So active immunity are of two types, artificial or the natural. Natural means naturally pathogen enter the body. Example, we are having the chicken pox, right? Or mumps, measles, whatever. So suppose naturally a person having this infection, so their body will form the antibody against it, right? So their body, next time there are very, very less chances of having the chicken pox. Why? Because their body already have the antibodies in it, right? So artificial means, they deliberately we are injecting antigen or part of antigen, right? Injecting antigen in the body via vaccine. So like tetanus toxoid TT injection. Tetanus toxoid is the example, or DPT, diphtheria pertussis tetanus. So these are the kind of active immunity we are sending to the person artificial. Same way, passive means ready-made antibody directly injected in the body, right? So via art, we can inject it artificially or naturally. So it is also of two type. Vaccine means ready-made antibody for the fast action is required, right? So it is also two types, natural and the artificial. So when we are artificially inject antibody, because we need fast reaction, we cannot wait for the antibodies to develop in the body, right? So suppose snake bite is there, so we have to put the antitoxin, else a person can die. So toxin actually has the ready-made antibodies for the fast action, right? So provide in the form of anti-serum. Anti-serum has the antibody in it. So anti-tetanus, anti-rabies serum is given, right? So this is the example of artificial passive immunity. So what is the natural passive immunity? So when we talk about the passive immunity, it is also natural and artificial. So artificial, I have told you that via injection, we are giving the antibodies to it, right? To a person. Natural via mother placenta. So via the placenta, and colostrum means, this colostrum means milk, right? So milk, that is the colostrum. First days milk, or first few days, initial days, milk is very, very rich with antibodies, right? So via colostrum, we are getting the IgA type antibody. Via placenta, fetus getting the in fetus. Naturally, from mother to fetus, these antibodies are injecting. So this is the natural passive immunity, because preformed antibodies entering in the body, right? So you have to remember these two types. What is the vaccine? Already told you, it is the live or weak attenuated antigen which on administration provoke the immune response of the body. Means when we put vaccine in the body, our body is actually when we putting vaccine in the body, our body will encounter with the antigen, and it will be like, oh, this is how the pathogen look like, and I have to fight against it. So it will just, it will not cause any disease in the body, but yes, our body will form the memory cell. And when the same natural pathogen enter our body, next time our body know how to fight against it. That's why vaccination is done, right? So next time, if the natural pathogen enter our body, or same pathogen enter our body actually has the memory cell, they know how to fight against it. So second time, if the same pathogen enter, highly intensified reaction will be there, right? So yeah, you have to remember it. Next is allergy, is basically kind of immunity infection, right? So what is the allergy? So allergy means over exaggerated response of the body, or of immune response of the body, right? Over exaggerated means, suppose a person you don't like and they come to your place, so what will happen? You will be like, oh, you will overreact. The same way, our body or certain people are allergic to certain chemicals, and their body doesn't like them. Their body will be like, oh, I don't like this person, I'm just giving over exaggerated reaction, right? So what will happen in that case? It is caused by allergen. Allergen can be any substance that is causing allergy, any chemical, any substance causing allergy, right? What is allergy? Over exaggerated response of the body. and it is basically caused by IgE. So what happens? Suppose allergen enter the body, and we are having the IgE type antibody, right? So they will bind with the allergen, and obviously when they bind with the allergen, they just stick with the surface of mast cell. And mast cell, when they bind on the surface of mast cell in presence of allergen secrete histamine, and histamine is responsible for the allergic reaction. It will give the allergic reaction. Very important, right? And we have seen it in detail in the class. Histamine and serotonin produced by the mast cell. What is the purpose of serotonin? So these are changing the diameter, right? So you can say changing the diameter of blood vessels. Why? Because it is, contracting the blood vessels of other body part, and where infection has entered, blood will rush in that area, right? And obviously why blood will rush in that area? So that WBC will ooze out in the area of infection, and they will kill the infection, right? So that's why change in the diameter of the blood vessels are required. And histamine is important for allergic reaction, as I have told you, right? So this is something which you have to remember. This histamine is responsible for allergic reaction. So those person who are having allergy, so asthma, so we know what is the example of allergy? Asthma. So asthma is because of the dust, right? Or we can write down hay fever. So some people are allergic to the pollen. So this is the pollen allergy, pollen grains allergy. So what are the symptoms in the case of allergy? So in allergy, we see sneezing, we see, like teary eyes, right? Or we just see this, what we call headache, or rashes on skin if you are like allergic to certain kind of fabrics in the ear, right? Or some people are allergic to the pollen grains, some are allergic to dust, some are allergic to sunlight, some are allergic to certain chemicals present in food, so their body start secreting IgE. And IgE just stimulate mast cell to secrete the chemical for allergy, right? And what are the anti-allergen? How can we prevent the allergy? How can we reduce the reaction? By taking adrenaline. Adrenaline are having anti-allergen property. Steroids are having anti-allergen properties, and antihistamines reduce the this allergy, right? So these are example of anti-allergens. Next, autoimmunity and lymphoid organs. So we know when we talk about autoimmunity means sometime our immunity not able to differentiate their own cell, and they start killing their own cell. And this is the autoimmunity disease, right? So autoimmunity means immunity against our on-board body, right? And it develop when immune system fail to recognize self antigen. So they are not able to recognize our body cell, and hence they start killing their body, right? So this is the autoimmunity. Rheumatoid arthritis is the best example of autoimmunity, right? So next, lymphoid organs means where exactly our immune cells are formed, right? So immune cells develop and mature here. So they develop and mature here. So what are the lymphoid organs? Primary and secondary. So primary means site of their origin and maturation. So they originate here and mature here. Example, bone marrow. So in the bone marrow, formation of B cell and T cell is B and T cell happens, right? B lymphocyte and T lymphocyte. And even in bone marrow, maturation of B cell happen. So that's why we called it B lymphocyte, right? So maturation of B cell happen in the bone marrow. That's why we called it B for bone marrow. And in thymus known as training school of T lymphocyte. So yeah, because maturation of T cell get differentiated in the thymus for fight. So this is here means primary lymphoid organ are those where origin of lymphoid organs and differentiation, maturation happen. Once they mature, they will go to the site of battlefield. So this is the training schools. These are the origin and secondary lymphoid organ, where exactly these are the site of interaction, where immune cell interact with various pathogens. So this is the battlefield where they have to fight against their enemy, right? So what are the example? Lymph nodes, Peyer's patches, tonsils. These are examples of secondary lymphoid organ. Even MALT, that is the mucosal associated lymphoid organ, which is present in the mucosa lining of the body, like respiratory, mucosa lining of respiratory tract, mucosa lining of urinogenital tract, mucosa lining of digestive tract, right? So mucosal associated lymphoid tissue, lymphoid tissue. And MALT consists more than 50% of lymphoid tissue. So it form more than 50% of lymphoid tissue. You have to remember it. Very important for exam. So where is the lymph node present? It is present at the regular interval, at the regular interval of the lymphatic vessel. Peyer's patch is present in our small intestine. Tonsils present in our pharynx, right? In our pharynx or buccal cavity part. So you have to remember it. Next, AIDS. So AIDS is also disorder of immunity, acquired immunodeficiency disorder, right? Caused by human immunodeficiency virus. Immunodeficiency virus. So as the name suggests, acquired means this is basically produced after birth, means it basically infect after birth. In acquired immunity or deficiency, immunodeficiency syndrome. Immunodeficiency means it will affect our immunity cell, and syndrome means because of decrease in immunity, various diseases, various symptoms will be seen in the body, right? So we know that when we talk about the AIDS, mainly it will affect the T helper cell, right? So we are having different type of T cell, and obviously T helper cell has the CD4 receptor on it. And this CD4 receptor on the T helper cell of the human identify the AIDS or so HIV virus, right? So when we talk about HIV virus, this is how HIV virus look like. So they are having this receptor on their body. These are the glycoprotein receptor. And this glycoprotein receptor is the spike. And it will actually identify the CD4 receptor. It will identify. So when it enter the body via body fluid, so it will identify the CD4 receptor on the T helper cell and will just inject its RNA in the body, right? So they are having the 2 single-stranded RNA. They are having reverse transcriptase enzyme so that this RNA can convert into viral DNA, and those DNA will just stick with they will just get them stuck with our DNA, incorporate with our DNA of the T helper cell, right? They are having the bilipid layer. So yeah, they are having bilipid layer. They are having the capsid protein layer, which enclose the RNA as a genetic material. They are having two single-stranded RNA molecule and 2 reverse transcriptase, as you can see, right? It's a reverse transcriptase. So it is reverse transcriptase. Reverse transcriptase. Right? So yeah, this is basically glycoprotein receptor on the HIV virus, which recognize our CD4 receptor on TH cell, and simultaneously they affect the macrophages also. So macrophages is known as HIV factory. Why? Because HIV virus increase their number in the macrophages, and obviously T helper cell then after increasing their army. After increasing the HIV virus, they enter the T helper cell and they will infect it, right? So they will just destruct the T helper cell, which is important for immunity, and our immunity is gone. So how does it transmit? Transmit by sexual transmission, blood transfusion, and from infected mother to fetus while parturition happening. So basically, it will enter the child once it is coming out. That's why we call it acquired immunity. Happen after, but it's not congenital. It's not genetic, right? It actually transmit from mother to fetus while baby is coming out, right? When placenta cuts. So test and treatment. So ELISA is basically diagnostic test and Western blotting is the confirmatory test. So this is the confirmatory test. You have to remember confirmatory test, and then this ELISA is basically diagnostic test. Even PCR also diagnostic test, right? Means for detection. Antiviral drugs are given to the person. So antiretroviral drug as a AZT, right? So what is basically function of this drug? It cannot prevent the AIDS, but obviously it can prolong the life of a person. It will for some time inhibit the viral growth, right? But it cannot protect a person. It can prolong the life for some years, but it cannot protect a person, cannot prevent the disease, right? So next is cancer. When we talk about cancer, means uncontrolled cell division by the cells, right? So uncontrolled cell division known as the cancer. So the new cells that are formed known as and form neoplastic cell. Neoplastic cell means new cells or new cell growth, right? We call them neoplastic cell. So cancer, basically, if we talk about the cancer, it is don't show contact inhibition, means normal cell will stop growing once they come in contact with the other cells, but they don't have any property. They will keep on growing. They will just keep on growing over each other, right? So they will just have the ability to keep on growing. Exhibit metastasis means when we talk about cancer, it is of two type. So when we talk about cancer or tumor cell, tumor means the uncontrollable division of cell, neoplastic cell or tumor cell, the cells that is growing, right? So cancer are of two type, malignant and benign. So benign means they will remain at the site of origin. They don't spread. So this is still normal cancer, means it can be cured nicely, but malignant will spread in the body from one part to another and cause cancer wherever it goes. So it will spread, and that property of spread known as metastasis, hence it is so fatal. So malignant tumor is so fatal because it has ability to relocate. It will go to some other place and will cause the cancer there also, right? So there are three types of cancer. Sarcoma is the cancer of epithelial tissue, and especially epithelial tissue of endodermis and ectodermis in origin. So those epithelial tissue which are either ectodermal or endodermal in origin, like skin cancer, like breast cancer, so like lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, stomach cancer, because all these are made up of epithelial cell of ectoderm and endodermal in origin, right? Carcinomas are cancer of organ which are mesodermal in origin, mesodermal tissue, right? And when we talk about lymphoma, it's a blood cancer. So these are the types of cancer caused by the physical agent, radiation mainly. So when we talk about radiation, so obviously some are radiation, some are ionizing. So ionizing radiation means X-rays and non-ionizing radiation. So what is the non-ionizing radiation? It's UV rays. UV rays. Now, if we talk about chemical agents, so chemical like smoke, tobacco, right? Nicotine, tobacco has nicotine. Biological agent, viruses. So we called them cancer-causing viruses. So how it is diagnosed and treated? So it diagnosed by the biopsy. means suspected tissue is taken and obviously detected for the cancer. In the CT scan, we just use X-rays to get the detailed image of the organ, and in the MRIs, strong magnetic image is used. Strong magnetic field is used. Strong magnetic field is used along with the non-ionizing radiation, right? Along with the non-ionizing radiation to get the 3D image. So this is known as safest technique to detect the cancer. Safest technique, and in which we can get the 3D image of the body, right? So you have to remember, this is the NEET question. Which one is the safest technique? MRI. And you don't have to do the PET. So treatment is surgery. Surgery means surgically cancer is removed. Chemotherapy means certain drugs are given, vinblastine or curcumin, right? So vinblastine basically given, vincristine is given. Radiotherapy means radiation, ionizing radiation. Also basically some gamma radiations are given to irradiate the cancer causing cells or cancer cells, right? So suppose to treat the thyroid cancer, we use I-155, iodine 155. So these are the ionizing, these are basically, gamma radiations, right? So that is given to irradiate the cancer. Immunotherapy means interferons is given. So interferons will boost up the immunity to kill the cancerous cell, right? So these are the cancer. I have told you neoplasm means new growth. New growth or tumor cell, also known as neoplasm. Benign and malignant, I have already discussed about them. Now the last topic is drugs. So when we talk about the drugs, first category is opioid narcotics. So opioid narcotics are basically obtained from the opium plant Papaver somniferum, and they are known as heroin, and smack or morphine is the part of it, right? So morphine is the part of it. These are very good analgesic painkiller. Analgesic NEET question, NEET 2022 means this time they have asked this, right? Analgesic means good painkiller. Good painkiller. And when we talk about heroin, they will reduce the pain, or basically they will lower down the body function. Lower down body function. So their receptor, opioid narcotics has receptor in GIT and in our central nervous system. So bind to the opioid receptor having the central nervous system and GIT. Depressants slow down our body function. You have to remember it. Cannabinoids are hallucinogens. Hallucinogens means they will cause the they are having hallucinogenic property, induce sleep, or you can induce euphoria, right? Or it will induce some psychosis, means we will not be able to see the reality and the imagination. So we are just doing the daydreaming. So that is the cannabinoid obtained by the cannabis sativa. Marijuana, hashish, charas, ganja, these are examples. And cannabinoid receptor present in our central nervous system, and they will suppress the central nervous, right? So you have to remember, they will suppress our central nervous system, suppress our activity. Coca, alkaloid, cocaine are stimulants. Stimulants means they will make our body so active. They will cause euphoria, means you will feel very, very good, right? Obtained from erythroxylum coca, commonly known as coke and crack, stimulate the central nervous system, make us so hyperactive. Right? So we'll keep on speaking, we will feel restlessness, we will feel so energetic sometime, reduce euphoria, increase energy, as I have told you, stimulate our central nervous system. So hence they are stimulants, right? So one are depressant, other one are hallucinogens, other one are stimulants. So next is the adolescence and drug or alcohol abuse. So we know adolescence means the people who are in the age group of 12 to 18. You're also falling in this category. So drugs and alcohol abuse among youth adolescents is becoming another cause of concern due to perceived benefit relief from stress. A person may trying these under peer pressure, examination related pressure, competition related stresses, and they are just taking the drugs to release these stress. which is the temporary method, and you will get addicted and it is causing so much harm to the body, right? So education about this harmful effect, counseling, seeking immediate professional or medical help is really important for this individual to, to prevent all these evils in our society. So that's all about the chapter. I hope you like it. Have a great day. See you all in the next class with the different chapter summary. Thank you, kids. See you all. Bye-bye.